Captain Elias Kane crouched behind a jagged rock, his rifle pressed tightly to his shoulder as the wind howled across the jagged cliffs. The alien planet was harsh, almost hostile in its own right. Towering trees glowed faintly in the dark, their leaves shimmering with a strange bioluminescent light. The soil beneath him was uneven, sharp, and full of hidden crevices. Every step was dangerous. Every shadow might hide an enemy patrol. He had been sent here on a reconnaissance mission, alone to scout enemy positions and gather intelligence for the human coalition. His squad had been ordered to hold the perimeter while he moved deeper into the territory. The last transmission from his team was static-filled and tense, warning him that the aliens in this region were more aggressive than ever. Elias adjusted his helmet and whispered to himself, "Stay focused, Kane. Just get in. Get the data. Get out." The wind carried a strange scent, something metallic mixed with a faint sweetness. He paused, sniffing the air. It was unnatural, and his instincts, honed from years of survival on countless worlds, told him to investigate. He moved slowly, his boots crunching softly over the alien ground. A faint whimper reached his ears, almost drowned by the wind. Elias froze. He crouched lower, scanning the area. The sound came again, quieter this time, almost pitiful. He moved toward it cautiously, his rifle at the ready. Around a twisted cluster of glowing trees, he spotted her. A small alien girl, no more than 12 cycles of her species old, lay on the ground. Her skin was pale with a faint lavender tint, and her eyes, large and iridescent, were half closed. Blood seeped from a deep wound in her arm, and her chest heaved with shallow, desperate breaths. Her breathing was ragged, each inhale a struggle. Elias's heart tightened. He had seen many wounded in war, but there was something about her, small, fragile, and alone, that made him act instantly. He rushed to her side, kneeling on the uneven ground. "Hey, can you hear me?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. She made a soft, gurgling sound, barely responding. He examined her wound. The deep cut had already begun to clot, but her vital signs were dropping. If he didn't act fast, she would die. A quick scan of her physiology revealed why. Her species reacted poorly to their own blood loss and were extremely sensitive to infections that human blood didn't normally carry. But there was one desperate option. Elias's mind raced. The human body could offer a temporary lifeline. He could give her blood. It was risky. There were no guarantees, and alien biology was unpredictable. But he knew what it could mean. He glanced around. No enemy soldiers in sight. He had to decide fast. He tore a strip from his uniform and tied it above his elbow. With practiced efficiency, he prepared a small transfusion device, one that he had once used to save a fellow soldier in the field. His hands were steady despite the tension. He pricked his vein and allowed the blood to flow into her small, frail body. Her eyes fluttered open. There was pain in her expression, but also a strange, almost ethereal glow that spread across her veins. Elias watched, holding his breath. Minutes passed like hours. Then slowly her breathing stabilized. The ragged wheezing eased, replaced by deeper, calmer breaths. "You're going to be okay," Elias whispered, relief flooding him. "Just stay with me." She tried to speak, but only a soft, strange sound emerged. He couldn't understand her language, but the emotion in her voice was clear. Gratitude, confusion, and a hint of wonder. She reached a trembling hand toward him. Elias took it gently. It was tiny, warm, and oddly human in its emotional resonance. The sound of movement in the distance snapped him back to reality. Enemy patrols. The wind had shifted, carrying soft, rhythmic footfalls. Elias' mind raced. They couldn't stay here. "They had to move. Can you stand?" he asked, helping her to her feet. She nodded weakly, leaning heavily against him. Her weight was minimal, but her grip was surprisingly strong. Elias realized she wasn't just fragile. She was resilient in her own way. They began moving carefully through the glowing forest, Elias scanning constantly. The aliens were not just predators, they were cunning. He had learned that the hard way. Every shadow, every movement could mean death. Kira, as he would later learn her name to be, walked close to him. Her steps were hesitant at first, but she gradually grew steadier. Elias noticed faint trails of bioluminescent blood on the ground from her wound, a haunting, glowing path that seemed to whisper danger. Hours passed. The terrain grew more treacherous, and Elias's energy began to drain. Yet he pushed forward, driven by the need to keep the girl alive. Around a bend, they stumbled upon a shallow cave. It wasn't ideal, but it offered cover. Elias helped her inside and applied a rough bandage to her arm, using his survival kit to stabilize her wound further. He watched her as she rested, her large eyes observing him with curiosity. She seemed to sense his hesitation, the silent questions in his mind. Elias found himself speaking softly. "I don't know what your people are like, or if anyone will find you here, but I'm not leaving you." She tilted her head, and for a moment the forest outside seemed to fade. Elias could feel a strange energy emanating from her, a warmth that had nothing to do with the physical world. It was as if she was acknowledging him, thanking him in a language beyond words. The night passed slowly. Strange sounds echoed from the forest, distant shrieks, rustling leaves, and the occasional roar of unseen creatures. Elias stayed alert, guarding her as she slept, every nerve taut. He couldn't afford to let his guard down, not for a second. By morning, she was awake again, sitting quietly and watching him with wide eyes. Her strength had returned slightly, and she tried to mimic some of the gestures he used. Elias smiled faintly. Communication would be slow, but it was possible. Suddenly, a loud cracking sound erupted outside. Elias dropped to the ground, signaling her to stay down. Through the cave entrance, he could see movement, armored enemy soldiers scanning the forest. His heart pounded. "They had been discovered," he whispered urgently. "Stay close. Don't make a sound." Kira moved instinctively behind him, her small body pressed to his back. Elias led her through a narrow passage, barely wide enough for two. Every step required careful balance. The enemy patrol was close, their voices harsh and alien. Elias relied on instincts and training, moving silently, knowing that even a small mistake could be fatal. They emerged into a clearing that opened into a river of strange, glowing water. The current was strong, but it offered a way to escape the patrol. Elias helped her into the water first, holding her above the current. He followed, swimming with precise strokes, keeping them both afloat. The enemy's shouts grew distant as the river carried them away. By the time they reached the other side, Elias was exhausted, but the girl was surprisingly alert. She looked at him with eyes that reflected a mix of awe and gratitude. Elias knelt beside her, letting her catch her breath. "You're going to be all right," he said again, trying to reassure himself as much as her. "We just need to find shelter and wait for extraction." She leaned slightly against him, and he felt a subtle warmth radiating from her, something beyond biology. It was a connection, a silent bond formed in the crucible of danger and trust. He realized that this wasn't just about saving a life. It was about bridging worlds, about the potential humans held when they acted with courage and compassion. They continued moving cautiously through the alien landscape, forging a fragile partnership. Elias taught her simple commands, guiding her through obstacles and using her instincts to avoid danger. Together, they began to navigate a path toward safety, a human soldier and an alien girl bound by a single act of selflessness. As night fell again, they found a small ridge overlooking a valley. Elias allowed her to rest, keeping watch while she slept. The stars above were unfamiliar, bright and strange, but in their glow he felt a strange comfort. They had survived the first trials, but he knew the journey ahead would be more dangerous than anything they had faced so far. Yet Elias felt a spark of hope. In this alien world, he had given something of himself, risking his life for another. And in return, he had discovered something extraordinary. That humanity's courage and compassion could transcend species, forging bonds that no weapon could break. The forest whispered around them, alive and watching. The war was far from over, but for the first time, Elias felt that the future might hold something more than survival. It might hold connection, understanding, and the remarkable potential of humanity in a universe that had yet to understand its own limits. And somewhere deep in the forest, the alien girl stirred, her eyes glowing faintly as if reflecting the bond that had formed between them, a bond that would shape everything to come. The alien girl, Kira, stirred as the first light of the twin suns crept over the horizon. Her eyes, large and iridescent, reflected the pale glow of morning. Elias watched her carefully, cautious yet intrigued by the strange energy that seemed to emanate from her. It was more than gratitude. It was a presence almost alive that made him aware of the connection forming between them. He stretched and adjusted the strap of his rifle. They had survived the night, but the dangers were far from over. The alien forest was alive with movement, and they were still deep inside enemy territory. Elias helped Kira to her feet. She moved more confidently now, her steps lighter and more purposeful, but her arm still bore the faint remnants of his blood and her injury. "Come on," Elias said, scanning the forest ahead. "We need to find shelter and a safe path back to human-controlled territory." Kira followed silently, her small hand occasionally brushing against his arm. Elias noticed that when she did, the air seemed to shimmer around them in a subtle way, almost like a soft pulse of energy. He didn't understand it, but instinct told him it was a sign of trust, of bonding. They moved through dense foliage and glowing undergrowth, avoiding the patrols and the natural predators of the planet. Kira began to respond to simple commands, following Elias' lead without hesitation. The alien girl seemed to understand him in ways that words could not convey, as if their connection went deeper than language. By mid-morning, they stumbled upon a hidden valley, shielded by cliffs and dense trees. The valley was breathtaking, a natural sanctuary filled with luminous plants, strange creatures, and a calm river winding through the center. Elias crouched and observed their surroundings carefully. It was perfect for hiding, and for a moment he allowed himself to relax. Kira moved to the river, dipping her hands into the glowing water. She seemed to be revitalized, and the shimmer in her eyes grew stronger. Elias knelt beside her and touched the water, feeling its strange energy pulse faintly against his skin. The alien girl looked at him and, without speaking, extended her hand. When their hands met, Elias felt a wave of warmth and a peculiar tingling sensation running through him. It was not physical pain, nor was it sexual. Rather, it was a profound, emotional and sensory connection, something beyond human experience. Elias was overwhelmed but calm. He realized that this was Kira's way of expressing thanks, a cultural and biological method of showing deep gratitude. "You're incredible," he whispered, not knowing if she understood the words but needing to speak. Kira's eyes reflected something like understanding, and she pressed her tiny hand against his chest. The sensation deepened, a wave of energy spreading through him. It was comforting, almost like the universe itself had acknowledged his courage. Elias realized that this connection was a gift, a reward that went beyond words or material things. Suddenly, a rustling in the trees broke the serene moment. Elias quickly drew his rifle, signaling Kira to stay behind him. Shadows moved among the glowing trunks, enemy patrols closer than they had expected. Elias's heart pounded, but he stayed composed. He whispered to Kira, "Stay close. Don't move." They retreated into the thicker foliage, moving silently. Kira instinctively followed, keeping her head low. Elias marveled at her natural stealth, her instincts refined by the planet itself. They slipped past the patrol undetected, a testament to their growing teamwork. Hours passed as they navigated the alien landscape. Elias shared simple gestures to communicate: stop, wait, move, hide. Kira learned quickly, demonstrating intelligence and adaptability. By afternoon, they reached the edge of the valley where the forest thinned, revealing a plateau overlooking a distant human outpost. Elias allowed himself a small smile. They were close to safety. He motioned Kira to follow, but before they could descend, the ground trembled slightly. Elias froze, scanning the horizon. Out of the distant forest came a massive creature unlike anything he had ever seen. Its skin shimmered with multiple colors and its eyes glowed like molten gold. Elias instinctively stepped in front of Kira. This creature, though not hostile in intent, exuded power. It moved toward them with curiosity, sniffing the air and observing. Elias's training kicked in. He had to assess threats before reacting. But Kira did something unexpected. She stepped forward, raising her hand slowly. The creature paused, tilting its massive head. Elias watched in amazement as a soft, resonant hum emerged from Kira. The sound was musical, calming, and somehow translated across species boundaries. The creature lowered its stance and the tension in the air dissipated. Elias realized that Kira was communicating, not with words but with energy and sound, forming a peaceful understanding. He lowered his rifle slightly, astonished. You can do that?" he asked softly. Kira's large eyes seemed to glow in response, as if acknowledging his question without needing words. With the creature calm, Elias guided Kira down the plateau. The human outpost was now in sight, and they were moments from safety. But as they approached, distant alarms rang out. Enemy forces had discovered their presence and were advancing quickly. Elias tightened his grip on his weapon, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. They ran, using the terrain to their advantage, with Kira navigating and Elias providing protection. The alien girl's agility and heightened senses allowed them to avoid traps and ambushes. Together they moved as one unit, a human and an alien, blending courage, instinct, and trust. As they reached the outpost perimeter, Elias called for reinforcements. The human soldiers arrived swiftly, securing the area and eliminating the remaining threats. Kira's presence drew awe and curiosity, but Elias ensured she was treated with care and respect. He explained briefly, through gestures and simple words, what had happened. Once inside the safety of the outpost, Kira finally rested. Elias watched over her, fascinated by the bond that had formed. He realized that her species' ability to express gratitude through energy and connection was extraordinary. It was a reminder of the possibilities when humans acted with compassion and courage. The alien girl reached out once more, her hand brushing his arm. Elias felt the familiar wave of warmth, stronger than before, as if the experience had deepened. This was not just a reward. It was a transfer of understanding, a bridge between their worlds. He marveled at the moment, realizing that humanity's potential went beyond technology and weapons. It was in their choices, their empathy, and their bravery. Over the next few days, Elias and Kira worked together to recover and understand each other. She learned basic human commands, and he observed her abilities and behavior. Fascinated by the interplay of her alien physiology and the unusual effects of the transfusion, their connection grew stronger, and he began to see the extraordinary ways humans could adapt, survive, and even thrive in alien environments. One evening, as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet, Kira performed the energy transfer once more. Elias allowed himself to feel it fully this time, embracing the sensation of unity, trust, and gratitude. It was like nothing he had ever experienced, profoundly emotional, intensely real, and safe. Through this bond, Elias realized that the universe was wider than humanity had imagined. He also understood that humans had something unique to offer: courage in the face of danger, compassion in the midst of war, and the ability to connect across species and worlds. Kira's reward was not material or fleeting. It was a recognition of his humanity, a celebration of what made humans exceptional. As they prepared to return to the main human base, Elias felt a quiet pride. They had survived against the odds, formed an unprecedented alliance, and discovered the extraordinary potential of trust and compassion. Kira stayed close, her presence a constant reminder of the gift they had shared, the gift of connection, understanding, and hope. In the weeks that followed, Elias would carry that experience with him. It would shape his decisions, his leadership, and his understanding of the universe. And somewhere in the vast alien forests, Kira would remember the human who risked everything to save her and who, in return, received a reward that transcended words, culture, and even species. The human soldier and the alien girl had faced danger, embraced trust, and created a bond that would endure. In a universe of uncertainty, chaos, and conflict, this bond was a shining testament to the remarkable qualities of humanity: courage, compassion, and the ability to connect with others, no matter how different they might be. Elias glanced at Kira one last time as they boarded the shuttle back to human territory. She looked up at him, her large eyes reflecting gratitude, understanding, and something deeper. He smiled faintly, knowing that this was only the beginning of an extraordinary journey, one that would redefine what it meant to be human, and what it meant to bridge worlds. As the shuttle lifted off, leaving the alien planet behind, Elias Kane felt the quiet thrill of adventure, the warmth of connection, and the enduring pride of a human who had faced danger, acted with courage, and received a reward that was more valuable than anything he had ever imagined. And in that moment, the universe seemed just a little smaller, a little kinder, and infinitely more full of possibility.